The
Hmm.
people who use ChatGPT as a default, as the answer, it's like, oh, I'm just going to go there and have it write my paper, or I'm going to go there and have it do my formulas and my spreadsheets and my presentations. When there was no thought put into it, well, yeah, eventually you'll probably become dumber. It won't be, it's not going to do damage. You're just not going to become smarter. You're not going to learn anything. You're not going to have thought through the process. So, is using it to augment our own abilities. I've become a much better writer. And also, my curiosity has improved. It is what should I be asking to get a better answer?
Hmm.
How do I develop that skill in itself? And the way I did that was not by using ChatGPT, but by asking ChatGPT is how do you improve my skill? How do you improve my prompt? And explain to me how you got there. Explain to me how you did that. What was missing? What was so it's helped me improve my own skills, but it didn't replace my skills. I still come up with the concept. I come up with the idea. I take the output. I then refine it for me. If I don't like the tone, yeah, it's much better at changing the tone. If I want it edgy or punchy or provocative or empathetic or personal, it's much better at doing that. That was not my skill as a writer. But to get the content to have an impact on the audience I was trying to deliver it to as a thought leader, who am I trying to influence and how can I do that better? It has been my assistant to be able to do that. When people are using it as the default, scientifically, they're probably not going to become dumber. They're just not going to become smarter. And if you're not becoming smarter every day, I don't care what your age is,
You're losing
you're
ground.
just, yeah, you're just becoming a number.
And I think that what I hear you talking about there when is that going back to agency, right? How to utilize AI and how you think of it is really important, right? Think of it like a coworker, right? How would you, how would you train somebody if you're not getting the right answer? Well, you try to train them, you try to, show them your perspective and try to, but then you have this, not just the answer that it gives you, but then the agency to say is, no, that's not right. And I think where most people are just taking the answer and going, okay, this is what it gave me, good enough, rather than being very critical of it and taking agency and being very intentional. That's the other thing that I would tell people to do is, yes, play with it to begin with, to start off, but then move into intentionality. Like, how am I going to utilize this? What is it going to do for me? And then start asking more questions, being curious, but being very intentional about that process of just utilizing its full capabilities. I think it's most people, if you had, an Iron Man suit, I love this analogy, I think of AI and ChatGPT kind of like is like an Iron Man suit for your brain, right? If you'd go, it's like, yeah, well, I'm not going to utilize that tool, right? I'm not going to fly or I'm not going to have super strength or you're like, but even though you have it at your have it at the ready, yeah, I mean, like, but you like, I'm not going to utilize that, and that's what you were talking about in your post the other day. Is like, I don't use AI, and I'm like, okay, but why would you not utilize a tool? Kind of like a mechanic who wouldn't utilize a tool, you'd think they were crazy, and this is the same way.
Again, going back to awareness, I'm hoping, and I don't have any, scientific study to prove this, but I'm hoping by is working with people to say, did you know it can do this? Let me show you. And again, increasing the awareness of what's available. Again, not to replace anything, but to augment that. And if I can, teach my grandkids, I want to teach them how to use ChatGPT. No, I want to teach them how to go to the next level. What skills are involved? What opportunities will they see? What skills might they develop from having the ABCs of ChatGPT?
So I'm curious because you're a college professor, obviously you're a boomer and you're working with younger people. How do you see the difference, not just in AI, although that's what we're talking about us, obviously we talk about generational differences, but in the way that they approach work and what would you say is like some advice that you could give older generations as they're working with the younger generations and vice versa?
Well, there's a lot going through my head. So, one is you might be surprised that not all, just because they're young, most of my students are between probably 18 and 23, they're not all tech savvy. Some they were good students, some played ball, they play football, softball, they're there for an education. But I would tell you about two-thirds have probably some experience using ChatGPT, and was probably mostly to write something that got by the teacher, not in a positive way. But a third is like, no, I don't have an account, never use it, don't believe in it. I'm not sure. We do a disservice by talking about the generations. Certainly there's a smaller percentage of baby boomers using ChatGPT and some of these, some of the modern technologies than there are Gen Z and Gen Alpha, and millennials are, still getting trashed, but even within the millennials, I mean, they're the ones threatened by it. They've been in the workforce, realizing that the oldest millennials are now, like late 40s, early 50s. They're threatened. I mean, they're really threatened by AI, and they're not all adapting to it. My advice: treat everybody as an individual. Young people don't have the experience that we do, and we take it for granted. And sometimes I got to step back. And it's like, even when I talk about, I remember saying this about somebody came up and was wiping my whiteboard. And I basically said, oh, it kind of reminded me of when the students used to rush up at the end of the class and clap the erasers, which it's like, why would you clap an eraser? you know, yeah, I mean, there's just so many reference points that they don't have. When we used to talk about the millennials 20 years ago, we talked about they never grew up in a world without an internet, and that was foreign. I mean, is you had to think is they never grew up in a world that they didn't just go to Google to search for something. We talk about the iPhone. The first iPhone wasn't available until 2007. The first iPad. We're talking about the prevalence of tablets wasn't available until 2010. That's only 15 years ago, 15 and 18 years ago. It's not that long ago. And look how they've transformed that. I would treat everybody as an individual. Everybody's at a different place. The challenge is, and as you were talking before, is like how things have changed. So the kids that actually do a 4-year school in 4 years is actually a small percentage. But assuming that they went to a 4-year liberal arts college, and when they came in and now they're in the middle of, they're graduating this year, and maybe they're junior or senior, is when they started school, ChatGPT wasn't available. The first year, professors forbid the use of ChatGPT. You would fail if you were caught using it, and because it was plagiarism or cheating. I have it embedded in my course. Now, I won't say the exception, but I believe my role, especially teaching innovation and entrepreneurship, or beyond that, entrepreneurial mindset and growth mindset, is ultimately the outcome. I don't care if they ever start a business or not, but I want them to have that spirit, that ability to be able to do that. Is embedded in the course is they have to use ChatGPT and compare it. Is use it different iterations. Did it improve it? How did you improve it? What did it do wrong? What was your first attempt like? How did you improve? Is there progress of using it? And it, again, is not to be skilled at using ChatGPT. It's having an awareness of what's available to be out there. What are the tools? And we keep talking about text. I mean, the ability to do audio and video now, or as you talked about, to design a workflow and a work process. All that is remarkably changed within less than 2 years, because when it first came out, it wasn't capable of doing all that.